What major company do you genuinely believe won't exist in 20 years? I hesitate to guess. I grew up with Sears, Montgomery Ward, and JCPenney's as the biggest retailers in the country. Now they're mostly extinct. Walmart was the biggest retailer in the world when I left my job at Sears for one with more consistent pay, not commissions. The Kmart merger was promised to push Sears Holdings into the top three retailers to compete with Walmart and Home Depot on equal footing. Amazon was only an online bookstore at the time. Well, how quickly things changed, eh? I still can't believe that Sears owned Prodigy and literally could have been Amazon a decade before, but never realized the potential. Story 2. Meta. The only thing they really provide is network effect. Everybody uses it because everybody else uses it. But there is nothing under the hood. It is increasingly obvious that there is no useful product or service tying that network together. Contrast this with Alphabet or Google, which is in some sort of the same business but actually provides a number of valuable services. There's probably a non-zero number that most people would pay for access to everything Google provides if they switch to a user fee model, but I doubt the same is true of Facebook. Story 3. With the majors getting in on EVs, I think it is only a matter of time before Tesla becomes just an IP holder to buy. Musk can't compete with China or the big three when it comes to cost, and even though his OS will be better, the lack of quality in the physical manufacturing has been repeatedly documented. So you will have a cheap product with better quality control and a slightly less good OS, mass-marketed and manufactured at scale. Not to mention the fact that Musk has pretty much alienated himself to both major political parties at this point in the US, and his EU sales dropped off a cliff. My question would be if and how long he can afford to absorb the losses at Tesla before he starts impacting his SpaceX investment. Story 4. I feel a lot of the retail and food service industry is going to collapse within the next 5 years unless there's a major shift in the way corporations do business, shifting away from greed and profit margins at the expense of workers. People are running out of discretionary spending funds. As of last year, upwards of 60% of Americans were surviving paycheck to paycheck. This is completely unsustainable. If I were to start a business today, I'd focus on B2B customers and outside of the United States. Story 5. Subway. Ever since they got bought by private equity, their quality has gone way downhill and their prices have gone way up. They were never great, but when it was $5 for a footlong, who cares? It was quick and it was cheap. Now at my local Subway, the most expensive sub is $17. I can go to my local family-owned shop and get a better sub for less money. Their business model seems to want to punish existing stores and mistreats their franchisees, and their app is complete garbage, crashing constantly, and you never know whether coupons will work or how much something costs because every store is individually owned and operated, so they can choose what to accept and what to charge. There are 3 stores near me, and they all have different prices for the same subs. It's confusing and annoying. Story 6. Carvana. The model is pretty good, frictionless online car buying. They've done pretty well for themselves revenue-wise. However, they've been committing massive amounts of fraud for a while. They have essentially a 100% loan approval rate, which means their loan book is astonishingly awful. They have insanely high loan delinquency rates, think 4 times the industry average, and have been taking huge losses. However, they've been using just about every sketchy accounting trick in the book to hide the losses, including insider trading, shell companies, you name it. It'll all come crashing down eventually, and I think it'll happen soon. Also, their stock is comically overvalued. This wouldn't necessarily end the company, but just a side note, for every $1 they've earned in profit, they've gained $139 in market cap. The CEO's father commits insane amounts of insider trading pretty blatantly, and this basically dictates their stock price. Story 7. Southwest Airlines, once the leader in customer service, low-cost flights, and employee retention, all of these are out the window. A large hedge fund has acquired seats on the board and are now directing the destruction of the airline. In the past 2 years, they have stopped free baggage, destroyed their customer service, ruined their loyalty program, and their employees no longer see the point of providing excellent service, as the new management is too busy cutting costs and trying to drive profits to reward the loyal employees. There is no reason to use SWA over any other U.S. carrier any longer. They are not cost competitive, and the experience of flying SW is just like every other airline. I don't think there is any way they survive the next 20 years. Elliott Management will strip the company until there's nothing left but to screw the employees and sell the equipment. Story 8. Lionsgate seemed like a general target for acquisition at some point. Financially, they're doing all right, but they kind of don't do anything special compared to other production companies. And they don't have their own streaming service, just Starz, which is a subscription and probably not a priority one for most people. So I don't think they'll go under, and the brand may or may not exist, but one of the big players probably just acquires them at some point. Story 9. Movie theaters. I love going to the movies so much. Just went yesterday to see My Neighbor Totoro with my family. Sunday afternoon, middle of the summer, successful blockbuster on its first weekend of release. There was a sad little handful of cars there and just a few bored-looking staff. 25 years ago, when I worked in a movie theater, we didn't have time to be bored on a weekend in the summer. It reminded me of the last few times I went to the video store, or a new and used tape, CD, DVD, Blu-ray store, or the mall. I bought a VHS at Tower Records while the staff was actively tearing the place apart. I thought they were remodeling. They were gone later that week. I don't know if this is bad or just different, but it kinda hurts. Unpleasant sense of loss and unease regarding an uncertain future. Story 10. I genuinely believe that the Xbox side of Microsoft will struggle to last 10 years, let alone 20. They've spent an exorbitant amount of money on a lot of studios and publishers, and so far that hasn't been much in the way of notable payoff. I'm convinced they're running at an operational loss that's being counterweighted by the 30% sales tax on their platform. I think by the time the 20-year mark rolls around, Xbox will have been absorbed into the Microsoft name, and they'll all have been reduced to a publisher and nothing else. They've lost the hardware race almost every single generation, despite consistently having the most powerful base console. They don't know how to manage studios, and whenever they drop a good game, it feels more like good luck than good judgment. Nintendo and PlayStation will be the only survivors. Story 11. I would be very surprised if many corporate-run restaurants exist in the next 20 years. This includes fast food. The current model just does not work, either lowering quality to the point that dog food is prepared better and or raising prices until you're offering your firstborn as sacrifice. Fast food gets the extra whammy when you add in all those coupons that make it so the profit on a burger is so low that you either have to sell $1 million an hour or lose money. So either you're going to see a huge change in presentation or they will no longer exist. Story 12. I think the AI sector is heading for a big crash. CEOs make all these grandiose promises about how AI is going to usher in a tech utopia and lead us to colonizing space. In practice, it's mostly just burning through tons of electricity, leading to increased disinformation online and creating structural unemployment. Additionally, it's often the case that tech companies survive the first several years with venture capital and that only a few will actually become profitable. AI definitely has some legitimate uses in research, but it's massively overhyped by the tech bros. Story 13. If they don't radically reinvent themselves, I'd bet on Paramount. Legacy brands aren't just enough anymore. The IP is aging, the strategy feels reactive, and they've struggled to define a distinct voice in a landscape where everyone is neither niche or massive. The streaming wars expose just how fragile studio prestige really is when it's not paired with innovation. If Paramount keeps playing catch-up instead of choosing a bold lane like A24, or even Lionsgate doubling down on genre and franchise play, they risk becoming a licensing library, not a living brand. The film industry won't die, but the players will rotate, and the ones clinging to nostalgia instead of evolving won't make the next reel because audiences are already tired of recycled IP. Story 14. Uber. In Europe, in many countries, they need proper licensing, so in the UK, they are just another private hire, pre-booked taxi firm, only with disgusting cars, non-local drivers, and half the price. The price and convenience of a single app for anywhere is their only market advantage. You can't keep underpaying drivers and subsidizing fares forever. All it will take is someone to do it better, being more agreeable to local council regulation and giving the customer more choice in terms of being able to pick a well-rated driver using a proper rating system, rather than 5 stars for acceptable, 4 stars or less to have Uber discipline the driver, who is actually licensed in the town they are in, and people will choose that option instead if it only costs a little more. I only use Uber when they are cheap. As soon as they get near taxi prices, I order taxis because I know I can engage with the driver properly and not need a shower afterwards. Story 15. Adobe. They have neglected all other apps for decades. It would take several years, hundreds if not thousands of hires and tens of millions of dollars to undo the damage they've done to their products. They've bet the farm on AI, believing that it will render legacy workflows obsolete and thereby absolve them of their mismanagement of their legacy products. Only it's not at all clear they're right about that, and even if they are, competitors are doing just as good, if not better work in this space at lower prices. Not saying that this is a foregone conclusion at all, but I can absolutely see a world in which they rapidly go down the drain. Story 16. Apple. No one is saying that, but they haven't innovated anything in the last decade after Jobs' death. The iPhone market is pretty mature unless suddenly India and China open up to them, which is doubtful. All of their new products have failed. Remember Apple Vision headsets? No one buys new Apple Watches without carrier promotions. Apple makes the majority of its money from iPhone sales and rent-seeking from exorbitant app fees because it's the kingmaker. But IMO, Apple is ripe for disruption. If they miss the new device wave of the next generation, they will get bought or go the way of Microsoft, forever locked in a niche they can't escape. Story 17. There used to be a program called Lotus 123, and at one stage, the CEO was the highest paid executive in the USA. Never heard of it? That's because the CEO was greedy and didn't do his job. Lotus 123 has now been superseded by Excel and similar. With the aggressive pricing policies, i.e., greed, used by the major USA software houses, they are also in danger of becoming extinct. Denmark and Germany already phasing out Windows and Microsoft Office and replacing them with the open source Linux and LibreOffice. Story 18. DirecTV. They had a chance to essentially be what YouTube TV is now, but they completely failed every step of the way. They are already a brand most people associate with a bygone era of pay TV, and their reputation for poor customer service doesn't help. Also, on a personal note, my family had to deal with DirecTV in the mid-2000s. It was a frustrating experience to the utmost, and I doubt anyone in my family will do business with them. At this point, they deserve to disappear. Story 19. Tesla. People will come at me for this, but hear me out. I don't hate Tesla, revolutionary company that changed the game. I just think there is a confluence of two major events that will end Tesla. Tesla's first mover advantage in the EV market is over. The legacy automakers are better at manufacturing than Tesla is, and it's a low margin business. On top of that, the Chinese are coming via BYD. Tesla is no longer the best or the cheapest, and there's not the room for them in the middle to make a business that's worth what Tesla's current multiple suggests. I always felt it was inevitable that once the giants of automaking caught up and believed in EVs, Tesla was in trouble, and that day has come. Tesla/Elon has found a much higher margin set of businesses in SpaceX, Starlink, and even charging. The car-making part of the business portfolio of Elon is the worst part. Why focus on making 5 to 10 cents on each dollar of revenue when you can make 60 cents on each dollar of revenue? I think that pivot from Elon is already underway. I think there will still be an entity owned and operated by Elon Musk worth a lot of money. I think Tesla has valuable technology that will eventually be spun off or acquired into something else. Maybe Tesla's corporate husk still exists as a way to license charging/battery tech to the big automakers. I think Tesla in the current form is going to lose. BYD will be cheaper, Hyundai and Kia will be better bang for the buck, and luxury makers will be of higher quality. I can hear the Tesla bulls shouting, but what about autonomous? Well, sure, if they figure that out, that's a game changer. But Waymo is so far ahead of them right now that I just don't see how Tesla ever catches up. One has 10 million paid rides and the other has 0. And even then, I suspect Tesla's autonomous car would eventually spin off and be given a new name to unlock the value there and make licensing deals possible. You'll have Tesla powered by Grok or some other such branding. Tesla, the car maker, is gone. They just don't know it yet. Story 20. Google search is falling off a cliff, AI search replacing it, so much competition in the AI sector, and Google is barely a leader. The company has made a point of forsaking the thing that made it successful, its leanness and ability to attract visionary people to work there. As it loses money, it will fall into the same trap every big incumbent does, looking for efficiency in existing products rather than the next big product. It will then not disappear, but merge with another struggling tech incumbent. The name might persist, but Google, as we know it, will be gone. Story 21. Ubisoft, 2 decades ago, they had all the best games and franchises. Now they bet on copy-paste games like the Far Cry franchise or Assassin's Creed 2 franchises that haven't done anything new in about a decade. Their stock keeps on going to the bottom. They've lost 85% in the last years, and as long as they stop taking risks or making games for gamers, they'll keep losing money in value. It's a good example of games being made by corpo suits in meeting rooms who have no idea what's going on or what gamers want. Story 22. In 20 years, a whole friggin' lot of them, and not just the ones that are on the decline. I believe that in that much time, cultural giants like Walmart and Amazon will be destroyed. They may not be gone, but they will be shelves of their current selves. People are getting more and more fed up with them, and even some people who can't afford to go elsewhere are going elsewhere just to avoid the big chains. If we end up with a government that cares about ensuring the demise of monopolies, they'll be gone, and with the crazy turmoil and division happening currently, I really do believe that major changes are likely to happen in the government within the next 20 years. Story 23. Google. In all seriousness, their cash cow has always been search, and they spent the last few years actively making it worse. Users are waking up to it, so are advertisers. Yeah, they got Android, but it's OSS at the core and can't be forked. They don't own the whole mobile stack. GCP exists, sure, but it's a distant third behind AWS and Azure, and I don't see them leapfrogging into dominance there. They haven't done anything revolutionary in a decade. All it would take is someone to seriously kneecap them on search, and the cash starts sinking fast unless GCP somehow becomes the core business, which feels unlikely. More broadly, FANG as a whole is precarious, though most likely to last out a decade, maybe more with a couple of exceptions. Facebook, Meta, still alive, but once its majority user base dies off, or another Cambridge Analytica-style scandal hits, people will bail. Amazon, retail margins are razor thin, and while AWS is an utter juggernaut, even that's slowing. Apple, they won't vanish. Too sticky, too rich, but they'll plateau. Think Sony, still here, no longer defining the culture. Netflix, called out plenty already. Content costs are insane, no moat left. They're likely the first to collapse, I think. And back to Google. They're actively ending the one thing that made them money, haven't replaced it with anything meaningful, and are bloated, defensive, and slow. I can see them selling off business units and being asset stripped long term. Story 24. Intel has already begun its downfall, letting the accountants dictate the company's path. Pat Gelsinger's time was too little too late. Companies like Nvidia are dipping their toes in the RSIC-V space right now. Some RSIC-V products that are able to emulate x86 are starting to be released. However, Intel could bounce back like AMD did with the right product at the right price. Sky TV, with the decommissioning of the satellite service, there really is very little point in having Sky TV or their streaming service with such large pool to choose from. News Corps, when Murdoch finally pops his clogs, a common idiom for dying, the kids will eat each other alive fighting over the scraps. X has already begun. The salute at the inauguration ended the car business stone and is only being propped up by the selling of carbon credits. The rest won't survive long after the government contracts end, especially after the current administration, and will get bought up by the competition. Twitter/X will probably either get bought or sold to cover costs or fade away like MySpace when people move on to something new. Amazon, Alphabet, and maybe Microsoft will get broken up, I think. Story 25. Chrysler Dodge division of Stellantis. The division has hardly any products now, and any brand recognition is now on fumes, and they didn't learn anything from the Ford Probe launch. The customers loyal to the Charger/Challenger were not interested in an EV muscle car yet. That platform should have had its own nameplate like Chrysler Blazer or something. Jeep will probably absorb the minivan, and Stellantis will just let the muscle car die. There isn't anyone left at Chrysler with the determination to create a 2025 K-car platform or brave enough to risk creating something like the LH sedans. Story 26. I'm personally rooting for Ubisoft to kick the frickin' bucket sooner rather than later. As of the past couple of years, it pretty much feels like what their end goal has been with all the stupid hot takes and crap situations they keep putting themselves in. I have a lot of these game companies like EA as an example, whom I hate, but will still buy their products when it's on sale for $5 for literally all of the DLC content as well. Did that for Battlefield 1 and Titanfall 3, for example. Ubisoft, I'm at the point where unless I'm getting the product for free, I won't be playing it. No point in even purchasing a freaking thing from them if, like the recent The Crew incident, they just randomly decided to brick the game, single player included. Screw that noise. Why would I ever give a company my money when they can just decide I suddenly don't own it anymore? They can crash and burn for all I care, and frankly, I'm excited for that day because I'll be celebrating it. Might even buy myself a cake. Story 27. SiriusXM, the glow of paying for 90s era internet radio quality audio from space is gone. Sounds awful, far worse than HD radio, and I have my phone and Bluetooth. Cellular internet plus streaming services 100% drank their milkshake. My new car came with XM, and after the trial was up, I just didn't really want it. They kept sending me lower and lower offers. I've gotten as low as $2 a month, and I just don't want it. I listen to Apple Music on my phone outside a couple of spots. Maybe if I was a long-haul trucker through Montana or something. Story 28. Online food delivery companies. If you go to the Grubhub subreddit, there are so many complaints of their drivers and how their app is still occasionally problematic. I heard DoorDash and Uber Eats give better customer service, but not by much. You used to pay a small delivery fee plus tip for the driver. Now you have to pay several fees and a tip for the driver, and there's no guarantee your food will even get delivered on time. Restaurants are forced to increase the prices on their online menu to compensate since they're paying a commission plus fees. The best case scenario is a company dedicated to providing high-quality professional delivery drivers, if that. And if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 29. This one might surprise people, but I'm going to say Intel. For the record, they have a long runway before it would theoretically happen, and as it's considered a core element to U.S. security, see what I did there, it's probable the government will subsidize them, but they've got about a decade and a half of consistent and poor decision-making coming up that's biting them in the butt very hard now. The ramifications are going to keep happening for at least the next 5 to 10 years, and Intel is going to be in a rough spot for a long time. Whether it truly ceased to exist or not is uncertain, but they are definitely going to be in a different spot than they are now and will have a lot of reputation death for sure. Of course, AMD was in a similar spot in 2014, and we see what happened there, so Intel has room/runway to right the ship. Time will tell. Story 30. Most, if not all, car dealerships. Right now there is legislation that prevents manufacturers from selling directly to the public, and lobbyists for dealerships to keep it that way, but at some point the middleman will get cut out of the process, and people will be able to buy their new car the same way Carvana sells used cars online. No slimy salesperson required, no wasting time getting schmucked around by a team of them at the dealership. I try to think of my kids, 18 and 16, and if they can't buy something online, they won't buy it. In a lot less than 20 years, that generation will be doing most of the spending. Second, brick and mortar casinos will get trimmed down for exactly the same reason. Online gaming is already huge and poised to become an even larger percentage of the revenue. Playing at a live table on a smoky casino floor where you have to communicate with other humans, a nightmare for most kids, will be reserved for VIPs and high-limit players. Those $10 to $25 games will be gone on casino floors, replaced by additional slot machines or electronic table games, or their real estate will be absorbed by other experiential amenities like restaurants, escape rooms, rock climbing walls, esports arenas, etc. Story 31. 99% of you are just listing companies you want to see go broke because you personally do not like them. For example, Google and Microsoft. If you think they're going to go broke in 20 years, then short the stock. I dare you. Put every dime in your savings. If you even have $10 of savings and a short sell on Google or Microsoft, should be easy money for you. Story 32. I definitely have some contenders for that. US Cellular, they'll still have some of the spectrum and the towers, but T-Mobile will have the customer-facing part of the business, customer list, and retail stores. I believe that eventually even the non-customer-facing part of US Cellular will cease to exist as well. Dish Network, they're struggling to keep up with the debt payments and will likely file bankruptcy soon if they haven't done so already. Kmart USA, there are 5 stores left and only one of them actually in the mainland US as of the last official report. Sears USA, there are 8 stores left as of the last official report. Story 33. MicroStrategy, this company doesn't do anything. They raise money from investors to buy Bitcoin. They buy so much Bitcoin it pumps the market price of Bitcoin. Their own valuation goes up based on the higher spot price applied to their vast holdings of Bitcoin. They then raise more money from investors to repeat the whole thing. Since they never sell their Bitcoin, they couldn't liquidate it without collapsing the price, and their pre-Bitcoin software business is a rounding error to their operations. The obligations they incur during fundraising are primarily paid for by future fundraising rounds. I'm not in the shorting business or in the market timing business, but perpetual motion machines like this, where money just kind of self-accumulates with no product being produced or service being provided, always blow up eventually. Some people will make a lot of money, some people will lose a lot of money. Ultimately, both will balance out since nothing of value was added to the world. 20 years seems like a reasonable time frame. Story 34. I will be taking a big swing. 3M. A couple of years ago, they spun off their healthcare division, 1/3 of their sales, 1/3 of their profits, give or take. In the past, when they spun something off like Emation, it was not because it was not profitable, but rather they had, through what were once wonderful and talented researchers, stumbled upon and developed something with the market but did not fit within their overall strategy or already established manufacturing chains. The healthcare spinoff was simply a money grab. 3M is dealing with major lawsuits, PFAS, because the C-suite did not listen to their scientists decades ago, and the hearing protection lawsuits because they acquired a company without doing their homework. The PFAS suits are only beginning. As large as they already are, much more is to come at them. The kicker is their leadership has been so bad the past 25 years. They were coasting on the work of strong leadership pre-McNerney, made CEO in 2000. See what happened to Boeing under his leadership. Since then, innovation has dried up as the C-suite has moved away from creating and manufacturing to buying and selling. They are now more interested in moving paper around than making things. Story 35. I'm struggling to find any reason to go to a movie theater. People can get 70-inch plus 4K screens for way under $1,000 and even in the $500 to $600 range on a good deal. I can eat anything I want when I want it. I can pause it while I go make it. I'm not listing them all. You get it. I have virtually complete and total control over my movie experience. Why pay like $15 to $20 to sit in dirty seats, eat stale popcorn, and be annoyed with random strangers talking? Story 36. Barnes & Noble, the last of the major freestanding bookstores, Borders, Walden Books, B. Dalton, long gone. One recently closed in my town. The one I still go to has a lot of open space inside due to decreased inventory. For 20 years, it has been turning into a toy store, and now the CDs and DVDs in the back room are gone. I read voraciously and compile a list of books that have popped up in my social media, but I'm lucky to find one on the shelf. I haven't seen one of those red square 20% off stickers in over a year either. I prefer to buy my books at B&N, but rarely has a book on the shelf caught my eye in over 3 years. It had been my Saturday morning ritual after breakfast to spend an hour in the store, but now I usually head home instead. I want them to do well. I feel there is a certain faction in the US today that would be thrilled to see the death of bookstores. I want to resist this, but I don't have a good feeling about Barnes & Noble. Story 37. Arby's. Arby's locations that have existed since before I was a toddler have been quietly disappearing one by one, and one of the few remaining stores, a third of those, are not in good shape. They still can't figure out what to do with their menu offerings, and not even good deal promos seem to be helping. The last one I ate was known for its constant blaring of loud white noise through the single working intercom speaker in the lobby, and for variety, some days it was occasionally music from what sounded like an out-of-tune FM station. It's like the manager really didn't want anyone to eat in the lobby. Pizza Hut, they've been having trouble for a long time. One of the largest franchisees just sold off or closed around 140 locations. Most locations won't even accept Pizza Hut corporate coupons anymore, even while individual franchise locations offer more aggressive promotions than they have in 5+ years. Certainly nobody eats inside the Pizza Hut near me and hasn't since they ended the buffet around a decade ago. Papa John's and Domino's both are also having problems. Between the three of them, I'm sure one, if not two, won't be around in 2 decades. Story 38. I assume we will see a lot of consolidation in the streaming TV market. We went from cable and a couple of streaming services to cable is now dying, and there are about a dozen large streaming services with a dominant handful. I will bet that Hulu goes away as Disney owns it, and it's already being incorporated into Disney+. HBO sounds like they are now splitting Discovery off again, so who knows if that will end up being reincorporated or bought in a few years. Skydance is trying to purchase Paramount, which already absorbed Smithsonian and Showtime. I feel like something has to happen with Netflix since the price has skyrocketed and the catalog is minimal outside of their content now. I can see them surviving, but wouldn't be shocked if they ended up merging into another service. A bunch of smaller services will probably end up going away or having their content merged into larger platforms, or a number of smaller niche services will combine into a larger niche platform where you can pay for different tiers based on how many channels you are interested in. Story 39. Might be more like 25 years, but Toyota doesn't have the chops to make it in the world of EVs. It will be a shock to most people because common knowledge has them as a leader in manufacturing, but that's just not true anymore. People who have been following EVs won't be shocked. They've been lobbying against fuel efficiency standards. They're still pushing the failed technology of hydrogen even as stations close permanently. There's no drive for innovation. The top-down style of governance will see them slowly wither before they collapse. Story 40. In the US, Best Buy and a lot of other retailers, ever since Amazon started selling everything, the path has been laid for pretty much all retailers to slowly go out of business. Some are trying to join the online sales movement, but they're losing ground, fake digital make-believe ground. Walmart, Costco, Albertsons, and Kroger basically have a stranglehold on the grocery retail space, but even they're moving more and more online towards delivery and pickup services and expanding out of just grocery. Walmart already is probably the only real competition for Amazon. I don't travel enough to Europe or Asia to see what is happening there, but I imagine they have their own corporations just merging and getting bigger and bigger while other retail corporations are failing. Story 41. Microsoft. Xbox seems to be a brand now rather than a hardware line. Everyone hates pretty much all of their current software offerings, Windows 11, Teams, Outlook. I'm no longer seeing anyone with Surface devices. Pretty much their business is being sustained by organizations that don't know how to move away from MS Office and Exchange, and is closer to Stockholm Syndrome than anything. Their back-end solutions aren't any better. Managing services like OneDrive leaves a lot to be desired. Intune sucks. Copilot is rammed into everything. Name a single bit of Microsoft's current software offerings that you actually willingly use. Story 42. While these companies might not well be known by the general public, there are going to be some major property investment and holding companies that are going to go under, particularly those in the office and retail sectors. Although companies are trying desperately to get people back into the office, the reality is that the cat is out of the bag, and I think over time, work from home is going to gradually become more normalized. As for shopping centers and malls, it's clear to see they are passing on their assets with more people shopping online. There's going to be some big property investment firms going bust because of that. Story 43. Not specific companies, but high street bank branches. Every interaction with them will have to be via their websites, apps, or occasionally snail mail. Discount fashion retailers edged out by Shein and Temu. Small electronics retailers edged out by Amazon and AO, although large quote-unquote white goods showrooms may remain. Brick-and-mortar insurance brokers edged out by all the insurance comparison websites. Anything owned by private equity, as the owners rarely care about the health of the business, just interested in leeching as much money from it as possible as quickly as possible while loading it up with unsustainable levels of debt. Story 44. T.G. Jones. Who? Exactly. It's a new name for the UK high street arm of W.H. Smith, who these days are predominantly in airports and train stations. They've missed a hell of an opportunity here. The chain is very tired and has nowhere near the prestige it used to have. and this could have been an opportunity to revamp the business, refocus it, and change it up a little. Instead, they've chosen a parody name and literally stuck new signs on the front that look virtually the same. Story 45. Rideshare/delivery. The major players keep borrowing money to spend on advertising. When you use one of their apps to order a pizza, the restaurant owner pays 15 to 30% of the total bill to the rideshare company for handling the order, and then you pay the delivery fee on top of that. Imagine you order dinner for 4 and the total comes to $60. $10 to $20 of that goes to the rideshare company just for processing the order, and then they charge the delivery fee and take a big cut of that too. That's why they added the driver tip, because otherwise the drivers didn't have enough incentive to take the deliveries. It's all parasitic. Customers frequently won't order from a restaurant that they can't find in the app. So if your restaurant isn't signed up with them, you lose a ton of sales, and if you do sign on with them, they take a ton of money. And now, everywhere I go on the internet, I'm being treated to another ad featuring interactive dance routines related to having your food delivered. Those ad campaigns are expensive as heck. Borrow to pay for the ads that drive sales through your platform, and then extort huge sums from restaurant owners to make it all work. That's a recipe for failure if ever there was one. Story 46. Right, so this is left field, but Apple. I think Nokia will invent the next big thing. And like lemmings, all will follow. We are due a change soon. My prediction, iPhone will have a major flaw, and the hubris of Apple is exposed. Apple will install an app, which will then allow hackers to gain access to all personal details. Apple will attempt to make things good, but after the camera taking nudes without asking and the voice note debacles, people will change to a simpler smartphone. Story 47. Harris Scarf. They used to be a major retailer here in Australia, but they have been going downhill for the last decade or so, primarily to the rise in Kmart's popularity. But that feels like a cheap option, so I will also name Tesla and most, if not all, fully electric car companies. Don't get me wrong, I think that we will most likely be driving hybrids in the next decade, but the technology is not there yet to make a fully electric car feasible, in my mind. An ICE engine is just so much more convenient. You can spend 5 minutes fueling up, including paying for your fuel, and be on your way. Whereas even at a supercharger, it can take, 30 minutes to charge a car fully? The only way electric engines make any sense to me is if either A, we have a massive tech jump which lets electric cars have a similar time to charge as fueling up your car, or B, hot swappable batteries where you would give the service station your old empty one and would be provided with one that had a full charge, similar to what we do with gas bottles. Story 48. Not a specific company, but here's my prediction. Brick and mortar retailers who sell I need it right now type items will not go away. This will be especially true in mid-size 100,000 pop cities and smaller, as Amazon still takes 2 days to get here and will for the foreseeable future. It will take massive investment and a Walmart-style invasion of the US to get it where a customer in one of these communities can get these goods next day or in hours like in major metro areas. People tend to be averse to that, so it's a risky and expensive move. What I envision is companies like Walmart and Target fragmenting their major profit centers into separate entities under the same umbrella. We already see that fragmenting with Walmart spinning off their grocery business into separate stores. People are losing the will to navigate the everything set under one roof stores. It'll look more like mom and pop Main Street America used to, except Walmart will own them all. The exception to this might be bulk item retailers like Costco and Sam's, although I see mostly boomer shoppers in the one in my town. Brick and mortars that sell strictly durable goods, they're toast. Nobody needs a washing machine or a car in the next hour. It's easier for that business to move online completely and cut the middleman out. Story 49. Anything that involves spending money at a physical location for a product that is not a service unless you are Walmart or a grocery store. My girlfriend loves places like Burlington Home Goods, TJ Maxx. When I go shopping with her, it reminds me of when I used to go to Sears, Kohl's, and Kmart with my mother. Funny. Automation and AI is going to streamline everything, and the store will be brought to you on the future equivalent of an 18-wheeler with a department store in the back, and show up to your house trying to sell you crap. Just watch. Story 50. A sub-brand at this point, but Hardee's. It was crazy enough that Carl's Jr. bought out and frankly saved Hardee's in the late 90s. Even crazier that they didn't just simply convert all Hardee's to Carl's Jr. at the time. Even more crazy that it hasn't happened yet. But in the next 20 years, something has to give. The company can't maintain these two brands that most people don't understand are not exactly the same, that have some similar items but are the items that are only in one chain but not the other. It's just cheaper to have one fully unified menu across all locations, and given who bought who, we all know that would be Carl's Jr. I expect within 10 years they will announce a plan to start converting, starting with the westernmost Hardee's and working east, Hardee's locations into Carl's Jr., and then within 20 years the last Hardee's will become a Carl's Jr. And finally, and permanently, nationwide, you'll be able to get the double Western bacon cheeseburger. This actually was added to the Hardee's menu in 2020, I believe, but removed in 2024-ish once Carl's Jr. decided to stop sending the Carl's Jr. onion rings used in that burger to Hardee's occasions. Story 51. Most major gaming companies, or video gaming as an industry as we now know it, copying my comment to another comment chain about video games. Of those, Sierra is defunct, isn't it? Blizzard is a ghoulish shell of what it once was and largely drives the cancerous husk that is modern publishing. I'm not sure how Sega is doing, but they've pivoted from hardware to first-party game development to punching, and it seems like that's slowing down as well. Konami is largely relegated these days due to their historically horrible work environment, made famous by Hideo Kojima when he left. I've never even heard of Micropose. That said, even if my info isn't correct or fully accurate, which probably it isn't, I don't keep up with this stuff nearly as much anymore. I ran this by a few friends before I posted it, and they agree with the sentiments here. These companies, and by extension all other major publishers and developers, have struggled to retain gamers' trust and confidence, and the hobby is stagnating. Not for lack of cutting-edge visuals or game design, but poor, greedy monetization strategies, terrible handling of most major releases in the last several years, broken promises, couch co-op is a huge one lately, and the very, very poor optimization across all platforms. Gaming is in a terrible place right now. In a world inundated with calls to duty, infinitely bad halos, and starry fields filled with game-breaking bugs, for every 100 anthems that fall silent where so much hope and promise was once had, we have a single Baldur's Gate 3, another 176 Fallouts, and you get a Claire Obscura. The Suicide Squad could defeat the Justice League 100 more times, be played by less than 100 people, and you'd get one more Dive into Hell. Major gaming studios are fumbling, indies are picking up the slack, and the hobby has become a disappointing morass of stale, tried IPs with a few gems in between. Story 52. I am absolutely wrong about this, but Tesla, they have made very expensive decisions that I don't see panning out long term. They revolutionized EVs through battery efficiency and hit their peak several years ago. They have been surviving off the charging network and false promises. Their battery efficiency is no longer best in class from what I've seen, and they dismantled their charging network division. They're hitting the find-out portion of the FAFO model they went with. They're trying to force FSD into markets when it isn't ready, and it will become a massive drain on their resources. Their sales will drop steadily, and their operating costs will skyrocket over the next several years to account for the failure. 10 years from now, if they haven't found a healthy pivot, Tesla will be a shell of itself. Story 53. Subway. It is damn near $20 for a foot-long combo now, and it's not even good. Quality has gone downhill and the price has gone way up. I'm not sure everyone still remembers the $5 footlong jingle. Well, that's way gone. I just don't see how people continue to deal with paying these outrageous prices for barely mediocre food at fast food places. I can go sit down at a restaurant and get a real burger and fries for the same price or less. I won't even bother talking about the food trucks you can get authentic tacos from for half that price. Story 54. I could give you some other big UK shops like B&M or Homebase and stuff, but I want to go large and especially over 20 years. So, X. At one point, it was one of the highest used platforms globally, and when we think Facebook is only just 20 years old now, and you think of all the other platforms that used to be around that don't exist, I think X has a good chance with things like TikTok and Blue Sky surging in popularity, X losing things like advertisers and users being blocked in places like Reddit subreddits. Eventually, it will become unprofitable and unsavable. I think it will be a sad day that we mourn the passing of what Twitter could have been, but there you go. I think in 20 years, X. And if you agree with any of these stories or predictions, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.